Okay, I think we're good.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah, Bryn, are we ready to begin?
We are ready to go.
All right, perfect. Well, again, thank you everybody for attending this OtterTune webinar, where we're basically going to go over all of the cool and exciting new features that we added in 2022, which we're calling version 1.5. So the agenda for this webinar is I'll go over a bit of background information first, and then we'll hop right into the main part of this webinar to go over the version 1.5 features. After that, I'm then going to give a really quick teaser about our brand new version of the product that will be released at the end of March, which is our version 2.0. And then finally, we'll do a wrap up and answer any questions. All right, so for the background, I'm just going to quickly discuss a bit about me, our company, and also about the product, just to fill anybody in who might be a potential customer but hasn't actually used the product and is less familiar with it. So as Bryn's very kind introduction to me, I am the co-founder and CTO of OtterTune, and I've actually been working on machine learning-based automatic database tuning techniques for about 8 years now. So I started my Ph.D. at Carnegie Mellon in 2014, and my advisor was Pavlo, who's our CEO. And I started working on OtterTune in about 2015, and it was the subject of my dissertation. And along with that research, Bohan Zhang was a master's student at the time and, made a ton of contributions. So the couple of photos I have showing on the screen here are me presenting the first OtterTune paper that we published in academia at SIGMOD in 2017. SIGMOD is one of the big academic conferences for databases. And below that, just the co-founders photo of me and Bohan and Andy. And so we decided to commercialize OtterTune summer of 2020 after receiving, a lot of interest and inquiries from industry people. Basically they wanted me or, Bohan to go out and do POCs where we set up OtterTune on their deployments. And we did end up doing this with one company, Société Générale, which resulted in a research paper, which was super exciting. But what really triggered all this interest was Andy was thanking a VP from AWS for providing us with a whole bunch of free AWS credits that I could use to run the experiments. And they invited us to write a guest blog post. And that just, that received a lot of attention that you don't normally get in academic conferences, which was really exciting for us. And then, shortly after founding the company, I completed my Ph.D. and, we've been going strong ever since. So just a bit more background about OtterTune, the product. So OtterTune is, an automated database tuning and optimization platform. OtterTune actually, the academic version of OtterTune was originally only aimed at configuration tuning. So we did automatic configuration tuning using machine learning. And you can optimize for whatever target objective you're looking to accomplish, whether it be performance, like reducing latency, or hardware software costs. More recently, and I'll be going over these in a bit more detail in just a couple minutes, we've added health checks to help tune indexes and identify other problems related to resource utilization, cache management, and just generally database efficiency. And so what databases do we currently support? We support all AWS RDS and Aurora, including serverless for Postgres and MySQL specifically. And then, oh yes, and then the image that I'm showing here, so there's a lot of important different types of tuning, of course, and it's not just configuration tuning, which is why we decided to expand the service and also, offer index to help with index tuning and, other database health checks. But just to motivate like the importance of configuration tuning as well. This is a stat that we recently looked up, and it's just showing that the number of people using default parameters, I guess, is about 40 or 30%, about 30% on production databases, and the default configuration parameters are notoriously bad. So this tuning is really important in that you can generate, or it's very important in that you can really improve performance if you just take the time to tune, some of the most important parameters. All right, so just a quick intro into how OtterTune works. So in the very first step, the user grants OtterTune with certain AWS IAM permissions so that we can collect metadata from RDS about your database instances. We can collect CloudWatch metrics, performance insights metrics. In the second step, we also provide an open source agent that can be deployed in your infrastructure, that's able to connect directly to your database. And that's how we collect the internal runtime metrics, query summaries, etc. So that all of that information is in this diagram. What I'm referring to is telemetry. So once we have the IAM role granted, and then the agent set up, what we sort of begin the tuning process where the agent receives telemetry data from the database and AWS from the standard APIs. It then stores that data into our central repository, and the compute engine then begins training models to predict the database's behavior. Once it's finished training, it uses the data from that it just collected, as well as all the previous data from the database to train the models, and then it generates a configuration that it's hoping will improve the performance based on what it's seen in the past. At this point, the compute surface is also generating the health check recommendations, which show up through the OtterTune interface. Those cannot be automatically applied like the configuration parameters, though. So then once a new configuration is available, that gets passed back to the agent, which then installs that or applies that new configuration to the database. OtterTune provides different ways to do this. You can actually, of course, change the parameters manually if you wish. We have a fully autonomous, setting where OtterTune will continue to just apply based on, certain settings like how frequently it's allowed to apply and such. And then the third option is a human in the loop option, where we prompt the user to review and approve the configuration before applying it. Anyway, so once that configuration gets or that recommendation is ready, that gets passed to the agent. And in the case of, fully autonomous, it would just get applied to the database. And that, that process continues until, the user is satisfied with the improvements over the original configuration. And we also, of course, periodically generate health checks, and, even at like new health check failures do occur over time. So this is, an ongoing process. All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and jump into our version 1.5 features. So the first big piece of what we added that I want to discuss are our health checks, which I had just mentioned in the previous diagram. So these health checks in general, they just automatically detect issues in your database, and they also provide recommendations to fix whatever the issue is. So we provide a number of different types of health checks. So we provide health checks at the database level, at the index level for index tuning, at the table level, and finally, auto vacuum checks, which are specific to Postgres, and I'll go over what that is in a few slides. And do note that some of the checks, differ depending on the database. The most obvious one here is the auto vacuum checks wouldn't apply to MySQL, for instance. But we're gonna, dive into each of these next. So, so the first type of checks are database checks, and there's several of them. I think depending on the database, there's anywhere between 10 and 15 of these checks, and they cover resource utilization, cache management, database efficiency. So for example, memory, you can see in this screenshot here, there's memory utilization, buffer cache hit ratio, and many others. And just as an interesting tidbit, I posted the most failed database checks here. So for MySQL, this is the temporary disk data check. So in some cases, the server creates internal memory tables while processing statements, and if the memory buffer isn't large enough, this will spill out to disk. So if the percentage of on-disk temporary tables is high, it can be very beneficial to tune some of MySQL's configuration parameters, which is the temp table size and the max heap table size. So this is the highest failed check for MySQL. And for Postgres, it's the index scan ratio. So this basically looks at the amount of data, the number of index scans you're doing or index reads compared to the number of sequential scans or full table scans. And so if you have if this is too low, then what that indicates is that you might be missing some indexes, since ideally you want to have a much higher index scan ratio. And for index checks, we currently support checking for unused or infrequently used indexes, as well as duplicate indexes. So an unused index, we detect how whether an index has been used since the last restart or the last stats reset. And oh, you know what? I have the stats for unused versus duplicate indexes mixed up here. I will switch that when we get done with the slides. But and so actually there's quite a pretty high percentage of failed unused index checks. So for MySQL, it's about 10%, and Postgres, it's about 20%. So, that's pretty high, and it's a really good thing to keep an eye on, because both unused and definitely duplicate indexes take up unnecessary space on disk. So, one really nice thing that you can see here in the screenshot is we show also the table size. If the table is super small, it's not going to make a big difference. But if you have a pretty large table where you have either a duplicate index or an unused one, then it can be beneficial to remove it, since the DBMS will have to update all indexes every time there's a modification made that impacts it, and also takes up unnecessary disk space. So for table level checks, OtterTune, analyzes up to 1,000 tables in your database. And, if you have more than 1,000 tables, it chooses the largest based on number of tuples. So for MySQL, there's one main check, and so that's the fragmentation ratio. So basically, as queries, modify records, with variable length data. Sometimes it's necessary to split, data into 2 or more pages to store those changes. But over time, this empty space can, degrade performance since, you're reading less data than is actually useful, and, it also wastes storage. So this check, detects whether you have too much fragmentation, and then there's, commands that you can use to fix this, like the optimize command would be one example. So for Postgres, we have 3 checks. So we have dead tuples, stale statistics, and excessive reads. And so for dead tuples, just because of the way Postgres implements multi-versioning, it's especially susceptible to this health check, and this is an important health check to pay attention to. So every time your application updates a tuple, the database first copies, the original tuple, and then updates the copy rather than just overwriting the copy. And so, the original version is then marked as deprecated. It's not deleted. Similarly, when tuples are deleted from the table, they are also not deleted immediately. They're just marked as deprecated. So when we say a dead tuple, it's just referring to any row in the table that's either been recently updated or deleted, and was marked as deprecated. So, and these dead tuples do get cleaned up by the vacuum process at some point in the future. But if the percentage of dead tuples is really high, this is going to slow down your queries, and it indicates that you need to vacuum more. Whether you do it, trigger a manual vacuum, during a period of very low demand, or just configure your auto vacuum settings. So for stale statistics, Postgres, maintains summaries about all of the column values. And so over time, these statistics get stale. And so this, this check detects when they become stale, and suggests that you run analyze to get them back up to date. And finally, excessive reads. This is actually the same check as the index scan ratio one in the database check. It's just looking at the number of index scans. This one is a little bit more helpful because it tells you on a table level whether you might be missing an index. So it just helps you drill down a little deeper. And on the roadmap, and sort of already even in progress a little, is continuing to improve our index tuning capabilities, or index tuning capabilities. And so, we want to be able to automatically recommend indexes in addition to just detecting the unused and duplicate ones. So just, another exciting feature on the roadmap. And finally, auto vacuum checks. So these are just a couple of checks specific to Postgres. Similar, as we discussed on the previous slides, it's related to Postgres's, auto vacuum, or just vacuum process in general. So sometimes the process will get blocked for a long time, or if it has excessive scans. So these checks just kind of indicate, if there's any active scans in process, and whether they're able to succeed or not. All right, so with that, I'm going to move on to some of our other major improvements in version 1.5. So I want to go over some of our onboarding improvements, which are really exciting. So for the first, step in our onboarding process, as I discussed in, the how OtterTune works diagram, the first step is creating the IAM role so that it's connecting your account to OtterTune so that we can retrieve the data that we need from AWS. So we added a new deployment option for Terraform. And, as always, feel free to let us know what other, methods you're looking for in order to create this. I will later on in the slides go over a feature request form that will be very useful for this. And the second big big improvement has been with respect to our onboarding flow, especially with cloud formation. So originally, we've ever since we transitioned to being self-service, we've supported cloud formation. But previously, you had to copy and paste, information back and forth between, the OtterTune website and then, the IAM, or excuse me, the Cloud Formation console into our Cloud Formation template that we provide. You kind of have to know what information to put back and forth. And it was just a bit time consuming. So basically, like with the Cloud Formation, you press connect now. You switch over to the AWS Cloud Formation console. You just have to accept everything. All the entries get auto-populated. Once you accept, and then start creating the stack. Once it's created, the resource ID that we need gets automatic, or we automatically grab that information and store it. So much less effort on your part. We've also made improvements to OtterTune's open source agent. So more deployment methods as well. In the screenshot here, I'm showing Kubernetes and Helm chart. We've added those, which is very exciting, and we have seen quite a few people using those. And to support the latest index and query tuning features, the index tuning stuff is some of it we've released so far, and then the query tuning is a work in progress. But we collect more information now with the agent. So this includes schema information, index and table statistics, and anonymized query digests. And if you don't wish, if you don't want us to collect this information, it's configurable through the agent. And you can also contact us as well if you have any questions. The last notable improvement here is support for collecting data from multiple logical databases for Postgres. So we've always supported this for MySQL, but Postgres you used to only be able to include like one particular database that we would collect data from. So now we can collect data from multiple databases. All right, so next up, I'm going to go over some of our big improvements to account management. So you can get to these options through the little drop-down menu from your profile tab from the OtterTune service. And it shows that drop-down list. That'll open up the settings. So if you look in the first option for settings, we're showing that opens settings, which we have the Slack notifications and also invite users. So the Slack notifications are really cool. It's just an OtterTune Slack bot that sends notification when the configuration is ready for review. That notification is specific to the human in the loop option, or the having a human review the configuration before applying it option. So it will let you know when a new configuration is ready. The second option will be when OtterTune disables tuning. So this is a precautionary measure that OtterTune will sometimes take if the database hardware changes, or like there's a major version upgrade, since the old data that's already collected is no longer relevant in those cases. And finally, it will let you know when OtterTune has applied a configuration. So this one's really cool because it actually shows you the sort of before and after values as well, which is pretty useful. And then for the invite team members, you can quickly invite additional team members to join your OtterTune account, and these can be new users, or they can be existing users that already have OtterTune's account. Oh, and then this is just an example of the email that we sent, or that we send when you trigger that and input their email. All right, so next on the drop-down list is subscription management. So we've added the ability to manage your subscriptions through the OtterTune service. So you can pay per database, or it's a pay per database type pricing plan, and you can subscribe month to month, or we have annual subscriptions that are at a discounted rate. Another exciting thing is that OtterTune is now an AWS marketplace, so you can pay for OtterTune, through the marketplace offering, and you can also pay using AWS credits, which some companies have, and might be a good option if you're looking to do that. So just in the images here, I'm showing the panel for the subscription management and also the AWS marketplace. And I hinted at this a few slides ago, but another big thing that we've added are feature requests. So in that drop-down list, you can go to suggest a feature, and that will open up this page where we're accepting feature requests. We're trying to publicize this more. We do check it, and we're always looking for your input about what are the most important features for us to add next. Oh, and so the next big one on account management is we now support having multiple AWS accounts for your single OtterTune account. So you can just go to the if you click on the AWS account number, that will open up a drop-down menu. If you haven't added one yet, you'll just go to add another AWS account. This is going to go up or open up the IAM role creation page that's essentially the same flow as what you did initially. And then the screenshot below here shows, like, after you've added new accounts, they will also appear in this drop-down menu, and that's how you can switch accounts or add a new one if you have more. Next, so a big, I guess, announcement for security and a big achievement for us was getting our SOC 2 Type 2 certification. Security is very important to us here at OtterTune. We take it very seriously, and when we have from the get-go, this is just another way of us showing that we really care about security, because we're touching some of your critical systems. So we received this last October, and we can share it on request. It does require an NDA, but you can send a request to our support email. All right, and then for the OtterTune teaser, so I'm going to just discuss a couple of the exciting things for our upcoming March release. So this is just like a little, intro to OtterTune version 2.0, which, as I mentioned, we're going to be releasing at the end of March. And this is a full redesign with many new features of OtterTune. So in the top screenshot here, I'm showing the database score. The database score is a really awesome new feature that we're adding because, like in the version of OtterTune now, we do have, especially with the configuration tuning, you're able to pick a target objective, like the latency or the throughput, CPU utilization. But, optimizing for peak performance doesn't mean your database is healthy necessarily. So it's really important to, have backups and, other sort of maintenance stuff in place to make sure that that your database is operating, that you can recover from any disasters, as one example. So the database score allows us to encapsulate sort of all of these different components and areas where you need to have certain checks in place, and combine that into a single store to gauge your overall database health. For query tuning, we have received a lot of requests for query tuning. In fact, we sent out a survey a while ago, and one of the questions in it, asks like, what's most important to you with respect to tuning? And I believe all of the applicants ticked query tuning, ticked the query tuning box. So query tuning is something that we've been actively working on, and it will be released in March 2023 in the new version. Another big improvement over the current version is some of our existing users may have noticed there's the machine learning based configuration tuning piece, and then there's health checks that also recommend tuning some of the configuration parameters, but these are separate right now. So we're actually building, sort of a unified system to incorporate both of these types of checks, and it's additionally beneficial for the machine learning based checks to have this information as well and incorporate domain expertise and such. So this is really exciting. It's going to be the new UI is much more user friendly. Andy and Bohan and I like to joke around, like the original version of OtterTune. We've noticed after being with the company for a while, working on this problem for a while, that like what we designed was kind of similar to what I or Bohan would have wanted as graduate students. It has a lot of different configuration. It's a little bit complex. This is definitely more aimed at it being easy to use for devs. We've greatly simplified the tuning options. You can still, configure them. There's an advanced area if you do wish to configure them, but we're able to automatically, provide, like, infer the correct options in many cases. And also, no more digging for recommendations. The dashboard will now bubble up the most important recommendations and issues for all of your databases. And we're doing a beta release very soon. So if you're interested in trying out the new version of the product, please email Shannon at OtterTune.com. She's our amazing PM, and she'll put you on the wait list. All right, and with the wrap up, so, we went over a lot of important features today, including all the version 1.5 features, OtterTune, and a few things about OtterTune 2.0. So in this slide, I've just provided a bunch of links to our documentation and in some case blog articles that discuss these topics in much more detail. And with that, I really want to thank you all for coming again. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have about anything I discussed here or any other features in OtterTune. Yeah, thank you.